Let's look at some simple audio recording. Now, I have this track I set up a couple of videos ago named Cowbell with my VO mic as the input and going to the main output, and I'm going to record some simple cowbell. Now, the first thing we need to do to record audio is record enable the track. We can hit this button or we can use the keyboard shortcut R. So it's record enabled now, and you'll see the meter jumping, and you'll probably hear my voice doubled. I'm just going to hit R to take it off for a moment. And the reason you're hearing it doubled is because you're hearing it directly from my microphone that I'm speaking into and the return of Studio One. Now I'm going to open the preferences, and you'll recall we spoke briefly about the audio setup and this device block size, which the smaller it is, the less latency there's going to be, and the higher it is, the more latency there's going to be. And this is fairly low, but we're still hearing a little bit of latency. We can also affect this on the processing tab with the dropout protection. Right now it's set to minimum, and we can see here the amount of latency that's happening, and that's what we're hearing. And if I set this higher, and this depends on your audio interface, we're going to get a low latency mode that becomes active. So here we'll see that obviously this is a greater amount of latency, but the low latency mode will keep it small, and regardless of what we set this to, this always stays at the same amount. So when we're in this mode, we can get this little Z button. I'm going to hit OK and close it for a moment. And then when we're in the console, I'm going to hit F3. You'll see on the main output fader, and this always exists at the farthest right area of your console strip, we see this little Z button. And when we enable that, we're going to enable low latency mode, where it's going to bypass any of the plugins in the signal path and give as direct a signal as possible with the least amount of latency. So when I record enable this now, you'll probably still hear a little bit of latency, but it's minimized. And it was fairly low to begin with because of the low buffer, but it'll be minimized now. I'm going to take it out of record enable mode, and I'm going to turn off low latency, go back to here, and I'm just going to set this back to minimum, and we'll go OK and leave it like that. Now you'll notice that when I hit the record enable button, this software monitoring button is enabled as well. They're both going on and off together, and that's due to a setting that we can get to here from this wrench icon, where we have monitoring follows record. So when we record enable an audio track, and this is specific for audio, the monitoring button will become enabled as well. And if we go into our preferences in advanced under console, we'll see, like we set up a couple of videos ago for the instrument track monitoring to follow record, we have the same thing for audio to follow record. So you may or may not want to leave that on. If you're monitoring directly from your audio interface, you would want it off. If you do want to monitor the return from Studio One, you'd want it on. Like if you're recording a guitar with some guitar amp processing with Ampire or something like that, you'd want it on. For now, I'm going to disable that. And now I can hit record enable, and you won't be hearing that phasing or doubling effect because we're not monitoring the output of Studio One at this point. You're hearing just the input to the mic. So I've turned that off for the moment. Now, a couple of tips. If you select multiple audio tracks by shift-clicking them, you can hit the record button on one of them and they'll all become record enabled, assuming they're all set to different inputs. And you can hold down Option or Alt on the record enabled track, and that'll disarm the record enabled status for all the other tracks. And same for the monitoring button. You can hold down Option or Alt and then click on the monitor enable button to simultaneously engage monitoring on that track and disengage it on all the other tracks. Now I'm going to go back here, and I'm just going to leave this software monitoring enabled for the moment for the purposes of this recording. Now you want to set the recording level from your audio interface's preamp knob or slider. And you want to do it so you're getting about half to 2/3 of the way up. No sense to go too hot or you'll clip. Now I'm using my VO mic, so I'm going to record my cowbell from a fair distance away just so it's not too hot a signal, but normally I would put it closer and lower the level. Now let's quickly look at the metronome settings because I want to change them a little bit. Since I have this drum loop to record over, I'm going to hit the wrench icon, and I'm going to use pre-count for 1 bar, but I only want it in pre-count mode. I don't really need it playing once I start recording. I don't need to hear it because I'm hearing the drum loop, and it'll be a little more musical to hear that. So with that done, I'm good to go. I'm going to record enable my track and hit the asterisk key. And I just hit R to take it out of record enable mode. Let's hit 0 to go back to the beginning and listen. Not bad. The timing could be tightened up, but we'll deal with that later. We'll see you for more in the next video.